for myself, I much prefer doing the small dosing more frequently. So I use, and I find it convenient. Like I said, I'm a routine guy, right? So what I do is I'll fill 10 syringes to the mark that I need, which I take 150 to 200, depending where I'm at with bloods and so forth a week. Right now I'm on 150, like I said, and I'll fill a syringe that will give me 150 milligrams per week. And then what I'll do is I'll dose that daily. So I have a very consistent, like the body would, surge
Release,
of testosterone daily to keep my levels very stable and steady. I also find it convenient because I load those syringes, I put them in my nightstand, I shower before bed, I go to my nightstand, I wipe with my alcohol swab, inject, move on, right?
I know maybe this is just too much information. Are you replacing the tip or anything like that?
So this is where things get a little wild and a little crazy.
In my head, all I'm hearing is Greg Valentino dropping a needle and having to cut his arm off.
Yeah, definitely not that case.
Sorry, this shit freaks me out. I got to go for my
sure.
my life insurance. I got to get my annual blood test. I just turn because they got to pull like 3 or 4 fucking vials.
And there's people that are going to disagree with what I'm about to say.
Okay,
I have a friend who is a dentist and very, very structured in his practice and the way that they do things and so forth, and he uses PEDs, and we've talked about this, and
that tooth is coming out. Yeah.
Well, for the reality, I mean, we've had conversations. He didn't understand PEDs, and I very recently helped him understand it more, and what he was doing was ass backwards to what he should have been doing over the years, and we looked at his blood work, and we came up with some things, and then when I had mentioned this, he was like, wait a second, what? And I'm like, you're going to say that I'm doing fucked up shit while I'm sitting on the other side of the table saying you're doing fucked up shit? You know what I mean? So I'll say this right now, and the way I do it, I reuse insulin syringes that are going sub-Q.
Okay.
A diabetic will reuse a needle to pin their insulin for
Really?
6 months. Oh, yeah. Or prick their finger.
Oh, I guess you do that anyways when you
Every
check
day.
your shit.
And they pay for those needles and those needle tips. The insulin is covered. A lot of people aren't getting covered by their lancing devices, their lancets, the tips for their Humalog or their Lantus insulin pens, and they reuse them, right? Mm-hmm. Now, again, clean injection site, clean needle tip, which I do wipe the tip of my needle with an alcohol swab. Is it the safest thing in the world? No. Am I going to tell you should do that? That's a decision you make. Okay. For me, it's efficient, convenient. Like I said, I load my 150 in a syringe. It's a tiny little needle just going beneath the skin. It's not going intramuscularly where I'm going to get a big muscular infection if something happened. Have I ever had a single complication with it? Never. Myself, personally. Now, have I seen people have complications pinning intramuscularly without reusing syringes? Many times. I'm very fortunate that I am pretty sanitized in the way that I do those injections, because you should be. Yeah. And I would never, ever, ever recommend reusing a needle tip from an actual intramuscular injection. That's crackhead shit. Stay away from that.
And public bathrooms and stuff like
that. Yeah, and again, people are already going to judge me for what I just said, and I don't really give a fuck. I'm educated on this. I'm making a decision to do that myself. Do you have to do that? No. Again, it's very, like I said, I believe that microdosing your HRT is a very, very efficient way. Now, is it annoying to have to fill an insulin syringe with the amount that you need daily? Yes, because they're so small, the needles. It takes a long time to fill that fucking even little amount. Versus the way
Are you drawing through a 2930 gauge?
So that's what most people would have to do, because the other way to do it, you would have to actually pull into a big syringe, take the back of the insulin syringe off, make sure you don't set it on something, so you stand it up by the base of it.
Any of this shit dirty. Don't cough on it. Don't nothing.
So, and again, this is like, when I'm doing this, it's like fucking surgery. I have a bunch of things out, bunch of sanitary cloths on the table. Like I use paper towel. I set everything down.
Fucking
I keep everything out of the range.
Clinic.
Basically, and then I basically draw through my 3 ml syringe, and I'll fill that, and then I'll actually pour using a bigger tip into the back of the insulin syringe. And I'll just talk about the whole process right now for anybody who wants to try this or wants to go this route. I don't really care. So you
just please just coming from, I don't have the medical knowledge that he does, but my background, I took a lot of interest in it when I was fighting. I'm hearing so many different places to introduce bacteria.
Yep.
And if you don't think you think I'm getting over paranoid, Google Greg Valentine.
Yep.
It was Valentine or Valentino?
Valentino.
Valentino. Look at his arm, because Going back to that mindset, he was so insistent, I got to have the biggest arms in the world. He picked a syringe off the ground after dropping it. The tip just touched for a second, and he stuck it in his fucking arm.
Don't ever fucking do that.
When you're so fucked up that you're literally, like you said, crackhead shit, I don't care where this needle's been, I got to stick it in. He had to cut a piece, drain, and then cut pieces of necrotic tissue out of his body.
Yep. It can happen.
That's the opposite of what you're trying to do.
Yep.
So when he's telling you these protocols got to be super clean, he's not fucking kidding. Don't put it down on your counter. If you have to, like, clean it, sterilize it, pull some. Oh my God! Like,
and keep in mind too, like for me, I have a prescription for HRT, so this stuff is made in an actual billion-dollar facility. Yes. I know where it's coming from, right? I've had, like I said, I've had clients get abscesses from injections that were intramuscular from fucking bathtub gear. And
does that actually happen? You hear the jokes like it was made in a big bath somewhere. I don't. Maybe not bathtub, but
it's not bathtub. But definitely, there's some sketchy labs out there for sure where people are trying to make a buck. And I mean, I've seen it, right? I've seen people opt to use the $30 bottle of steroid instead of the stuff that's a little more expensive, made in a real facility or whatever. And sometimes shit can happen. I personally try to avoid that as much as I possibly can. And but yeah, that being said, so. Where was I going with that now? I lost my train of thought.
You were going through the process.
Oh yeah, so like with my.
You said you take a 3.
So I take a 3 mil intramuscular needle with like an 18 gauge tip, a big tip that I can pull oil into very quickly. I fill the syringe. I open the back of the insulin needle, so I stand it up. And by the way, there is actually YouTube videos on this. I've seen them before, and I've sent them to athletes for a visual. Or I've actually taken a video for an athlete to show them what I do because, again, I want them to do it right.
Yes.
And they make the decision on how they do it. And I have people who will draw. They refuse to reuse that insulin syringe, which I'm like, hey, I respect the fuck out of that. I've been doing this a long time. I'm just, again, efficiency for me is very key. And I'm not concerned about the infection side because I've never seen it, never had it. I'm okay. Now, again, if you want to do that, and that's totally fine as well. I respect the shit out of somebody really wanting to make themselves extra safe. So fill the syringe, 18 gauge. All of a sudden you pull the back off the insulin needle, stand it up. I personally try, even on a clean surface, I don't set it down. I don't want that tip that's going to be in the oil touching anything at all. It's going to be suspended in the fucking air, and I'm not going to cough or breathe, and I'll throw out the syringe if I do. Well, I'll breathe, obviously, but you know what I'm saying.
It's not on it yet.
And then basically I'll put the needle in the back of that open syringe, and I'll pour to the mark on the syringe that I need to get to. Then I plug the back of the syringe with the actual back of the plunger, but I don't push it in, because if you stand it up and push it in, you're going to push the oil out. So you just plug it. Now you turn it to the point the air bubble, because there will be an air bubble, goes to the top. You sit it there for a second, and then you push the air out. Once the air is pushed out, now that syringe is ready to be used. I'll do that, like I said, with 10 syringes at once for 10 weeks worth of my TRT.
Is that like an hour of your time?
Yep. 45 minutes or so, but I only do it once every 10 weeks versus 10 minutes per day, right? Trying to fill an insulin syringe and doing this. That's why I do it. So then I just put those in a bag with my alcohol wipes, leave them on the side of my bed, and I shower first. Then I wipe with my alcohol wipe, and I do my TRT before bed. Same time every day. It's convenient. I go to bed every day I'm going to bed. I'm not going to forget my shot, right? Again, do you need to do it that way? No, that's how I do it. And I don't really give a fuck if you think it's wrong or right.
I appreciate you sharing that.
But like I said, I mean, I've also had athletes who are very, very diligent with things and use normal gear and on cycle doing intramuscular injections, get some sort of infection. Now, do I know they were absolutely being as clean as possible? Maybe they just trained and they just pinned a needle right after they trained. You can get an abscess from injections intramuscularly for sure, right?
Just going too fast, I'm told.
Well, yeah, or going too fast, dirty gear. If it's not a good lab, and if there's something in the gear, right? Maybe there was some sort of bacteria in it. Now, most people will have benzyl alcohol and this stuff to kill bacteria in the gear. There should be that. What if the amounts aren't right? What if the person making the gear doesn't truly know the right amounts, or they're cutting corners to save costs?
So there's alcohol in the solution.
Yeah.
So then why doesn't that kill muscle tissue on injection site? Because if you ever had an open wound and you rub alcohol on it,
it burns, but it doesn't mean it's killing tissue, right? It's killing bacteria.
Oh, interesting.
And it's you need to think about the trace amounts, right? Like, it might be in a full vial, a 2% alcohol solution. So it's very, very low. I mean, they do this with tons of other things in clinical settings that you're injecting with yourself. There probably will be some sort of alcohol in there or some sort of antibacterial in there to prevent bacteria. Does that mean it's always going to work? No. Right? And again, if you're taking shortcuts and trying to save money and doing all this stuff and skipping those steps, you're probably going to have some people that have some issues, and I've seen it firsthand. And again, for me, I'll just say this straight up. The most amount of injection sites that I've ever seen problems come with are the quads. Most people like pinning their quads. It's easy access. It's right here. You look at the injection site, you put a needle in your leg.
There's so many blood vessels in your quads.
And I'll say this much. I personally have never put a needle in my quad. Not once, and I tell every single person that.
And you got a lot of quad.
And that's so that was another reason. That was another reason for me why I never did. Sometimes people get scar tissue buildup and you see like little bumps and stuff like that. I have very nice legs, and I say that without an egotistical approach. I have very good legs. They were my best body part when I was still competing as a bodybuilder. I never ever wanted to lose lines or disturb what I had in my lower body.
Smooth them out kind of thing.
Yeah, and have any kind of scar tissue buildup or lumps. So I just avoided it. I also had heard a lot of horror stories of people not being able to walk for 4 days from a bad shot. And then, like I said, I've seen friends in the bodybuilding world, maybe not athletes, I've seen athletes pin their quads and have a really bad shot, whether it was from dirty gear or hitting a wrong site. But I have a horror story of a kid I knew. I wouldn't call him a friend. It was somebody I competed against, but we were acquaintances. Yeah. And he got it was something crazy, like 18 mils of pus drained from an abscess on his leg where a doctor used massive horse syringes, put a needle right into the wound and was pulling out green pus for like 18 fucking mils of pus from this thing. And that's disgusting and fucked up, and you let that shit happen, that's where you look at the situation you're talking about, having to get actual muscle tissue cut out.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing, right? So it's no fucking joke why when you're getting surgery, everything is so sterile and sterilized and stuff, because you're, again, putting shit in your body. If there's a foreign bacteria, that can cause a cascade of events that you are going to fucking regret. So do you have to avoid usage? No. Again, I coach a ton of enhanced bodybuilders. I myself use PEDs and I'm on HRT and those kind of things. But it's something to be aware of for sure and be diligent with your use. Again, do I do things with my HRT that some people might claim to be fucking crazy? For sure I do. Do I think it's a giant risk? I've decided it's not. I've never seen it. I've never had an issue. I've never even had a bad shot with it.
Interesting.
And I've been doing it a long time.
Isn't it intriguing that the whole point of this was people could ask whatever they wanted about PEDs, and we've spent the last hour and a half basically trying to tell people not to use them unless you are 1,000%.
100%.
How much of this was, oh my God, you're going to be huge? Fucking none of it.
None.
This was all, you better go into it with some knowledge. Did anything here sound good if it goes even slightly sideways? Not at all. I love the honesty here, because this is not a joke. Just because you see your online favorite influencer with a six-pack, some girl you worship lifting a lot of weight, this is a serious fucking game, and we've just seen so many athletes dying before 30 because no one's taking this shit seriously.
Yep.
It's come to light more in the last 10, 15 years, but we're also losing more people than we ever have. And this is why.
And do you care if I go somewhere that's a little political? And
there's only one more question left, and it's not even really related. So go ahead, do what you got to do.
So something that the world of bodybuilding, like you just said, and that's what kind of sparked this opinion of mine, and I have absolutely no problem sharing this.
Okay.
The world of bodybuilding has lost more bodybuilders in the last few years than ever.
Yes.
And it's super unfortunate. And as somebody who loves this sport, it's tragic, and it gives a bad name to a sport that I love so much. I don't believe, now, do I think there are people who have passed away as of recently at 60, 55 years old due to heart attacks and stuff that resulted from very poor health management in the past? For sure. Mm-hmm. Do I think the younger guys who are 30 years old, 28 years old, the Dallas McCarvers, these guys that have passed
26,
away.
26, wasn't he? 24?
Well, and that's I guess that was a little bit before this time, and So Dallas McCarver's coach, Matt Jansen, is somebody I respect a ton, and he's been a mentor to me and somebody I look up to in this industry for a very long time. And that's a whole nother conversation. He's just a really good dude, and I know that really, really rocked him, and he was threatened by people in the industry and talked very horribly about for what he did, and it had nothing to do with him. And it's just, again, that's the side of bodybuilding, that's a risk that we take. And I think there were some decisions made in Dallas's route, which he takes. I'm not going to blame him for what happened, but he worked with a coach who didn't have his health in mind, and then came back to Matt after that brief period where some complications happened. And unfortunately, I think Matt got the shit end of the stick where some of those issues came to light after the fact when he started working with him again. But that's besides the fact. Where I'm going with this is, in the last 3 years, we've seen a good handful of bodybuilders pass away. One of my very, very good friends, Braeden, who works at the gym, you've met Braeden, I believe, before. He's our videographer. Had a very close friend of his, George Peterson, pass away 2 days before the Olympia. In his hotel room, he was found dead by his coach. And that rocked the industry. Now, where I'm going with this is, I'm not 100% convinced that PEDs are the problem here. And if we can put 2 and 2 together and connect the dots, what happened in the last 3 years in our world that was forced on a ton of people that can have serious health consequences. And that's why I'm not sure I want to go too deep down this road, because
we know what you're saying.
This is a personal belief, but there's no doubt in my mind that you take somebody who's already potentially pushing the gas a little too hard and isn't absolutely the pillar of health, and now you put something in them that I believe, in my opinion, and I'll just say it, is far worse than any fucking steroid you can take, and that causes issues for regular healthy people. What's it doing to somebody that might not be considered that regular healthy person, that already has a higher risk potentially of blood clots, that already has higher cardiac risks of other issues happening? And I believe that was a leading cause to seeing those drops in our industry, and it's unfortunate. But like I said, that's kind of the way the world works, and we can't go back on that stuff now. But I think it's very important, and something I did with my athletes is monitor and educate, right? We have blood markers that we can specifically look at, inflammation markers, cardiac inflammation markers, and make sure these things are in check. We can get our blood work done more frequently, make sure you don't have higher risk of blood clotting and that kind of stuff. And when I see somebody who, for me, is enhanced, and I see certain markers drastically elevated, it's like, hey, we probably need to spend the next 4 months focusing on this. Although we were in a position to start taking another cycle and push 10, 12 pounds of growth over the next 4 months, we're actually going to take a step back and we're going to fix this before we make that happen. Yeah. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong, because they get that one-track mindset of, I just want to build fucking muscle. And that's where, don't put a timeline on your progress, because if you do and you're committed to that only, and all you care about is building that muscle in that period of time, that's where you get caught up in the aspect of becoming very unhealthy. And that's,
compare it to overbuilding a city. If your 100%. Infrastructure underneath hasn't caught up to what you've developed, you're going to fail.
100%. Yeah. And that's where, again, break it down to the bare bones. We're talking about physiology. Things happen. We need to manage those things and fix those things accordingly, and fix what's broken first before we start adding more fucking blocks to play with, right? And that's just, again, trying to stay away from all that political stuff. That's my opinion on it. Yeah. And it did have a lot of drastic effects on people, and I still see it with natural people that come to me and I'm working with them and they want to go enhanced, and I'm like, hey, there's a lot of markers of inflammation here that we need to fix first that could have been caused by the last 2-3 years of some decisions you made, and that's okay. You made those decisions on what you thought was best and what the government told you was best, or whatever that goes with. I don't really care. You made the decision. Now we have to deal with it, and if I tell you that it's probably not best that you take steroids, you're going to listen to me, and I'm not going to work with you if you decide to go the other way.
Understandable. All right, so let's get to the really important question here at the end. Who has the strongest shoe game at the Den?
Ooh. You know what? I'm
actually start a war now.
No, you know what? I'll take this one on the chin.
All right.
Ty was the one who got me into shoes. He bought me my first ever pair of custom Dunks when we took him to his first national stage, which I was very fortunate for. And it started an addiction for me. But like
He's
I said,
not
Ty's
kidding. His office is full of it.
Yeah. Ty's been in this game longer than me. He understands shoes at a higher degree than me from the investment side of things. I for sure have grown my collection the fastest. I wouldn't say that I have the best collection. Ty has some really, really highly sought after expensive pairs. And he, like I said, he trades and flips shoes and has done this for a long period of time. I'll say for sure his collection is fucking gnarly.
Nice.
He has a lot of pairs that he just keeps on his shelf and doesn't wear. I think he's a little bit more removed from the flipping game now than he was back in the day, but that kid used to hustle, man. And like I said, he made a lot of money selling and buying shoes.
Awesome.
I've personally only ever sold one pair of shoes because I just didn't want it anymore. When I buy a pair of shoes, I keep them in my office and I rock them all. I don't do the dead stock thing for investments, to be honest with you, because I think if I'm going to invest in something, there's a lot more lucrative things to spend my money on.
Yeah.
I just love the shoes, and I'm a big guy that if you probably see me, chances are my shoes match my outfit.
Yes,
and
they do.
I have a lot of outfits to go with my shoe game, and usually it's funny because I'll buy a pair of shoes and I'll buy an outfit and then I'll buy a expensive pair of shoes to go with the outfit versus people normally buy shoes and then buy a cheaper outfit to go with the shoes. I tend to a little bit do the opposite, but I'm all over the place. Whether I buy the outfit first, I'm like, fuck, I don't have a pair of shoes to go with this. I better buy a pair of shoes. Or I buy a pair of shoes and it's like, I need an outfit now to match this. And that's just who I am. It's kind of become fun, and it's, that's another thing we've created a culture with, dude. I'll be completely honest with you. If you walk around our gym, the amount of people wearing Jordans these days is crazy. And if you look within our team, I have a group chat with all my 100 and so athletes. The amount of people who have actually started wearing and buying Jordans in the last year and a half to 2 years.
They owe you some kind of royalty at this point, man.
It's hilarious. The amount of people that have said that, it's funny, but I love it, man. It's super cool because, again, it's that culture, and we have shit to talk about and joke about, and we refer, hey, like, check out this pair's awesome. Somebody's like, I love that pair you have on. I'm going to go buy that. Where do I get it? And I show them where I get mine and so forth.
And no one talks about the dollar value, right?
Yeah.
And this is what I try and explain to people, because when they see, I know we're getting way off topic here, but when they see the kind of things that my friends and I do, they think it's gloating or bragging because they put a value to it.
Yep.
Like, because a lot of my friends, they know all the different private jets and shit like that, and people think that that's because they're not there. They think, oh, someone's bragging. But as you step up your game, to me, if let's say I was 20 years old hearing this, oh my God, you guys are spending $300 to $700 a pair of shoes, would have blown my mind. I never had that kind of money.
Yeah.
To me, it's no different as you step your game up, and then so it's something to talk about rather than what the value behind it is. It doesn't matter if it's a private jet and most people can't have it, or a luxury yacht that's 40 to 80 million. The excitement that people have talking about the options, the rarity, what's different about
100%.
this, or I knew the 3 months that this was made. A group of like-minded people love that shit.
Yep.
Everybody on the outside just wants to judge it. I don't have that shoe game. I got a couple nice pieces that I wear when I have to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I got my Pumas on that I got at the outlet mall when I was in Vegas.
There you go.
$40.
100%. Right? And like you said, you could look at shoes like you look at designer watches, the Breitlings, the Rolexes and stuff, right? It's just, I think at a little higher level, there's only a few pairs of Jordans and stuff that are worth 10 to 12 to 14K. And to be honest, if you're buying those shoes, I think you're probably better off investing your money in something else. But that being said, those shoes, if you keep them dead stock and you don't wear them, they will go up in value over time, right? And the shoe game is something like that, which I'm not too crazy into it to the point that I'm only buying shoes based on an investment because I'm trying to make $150,000, $200,000 off a pair of shoes. If I get a rare pair of shoes, because again, we kind of do our research, and when Nike's doing a drop, we have access to U.S. accounts that we will have access to the U.S. sneakers app and so forth, and we'll try to get these drops. But it's a rare thing, right? Like, if you actually win a pair of sneakers on the Nike app, when they do a new drop for a shoe, it's very rare to win. And when you win, you don't get the shoe, you have to buy the shoe.
Yeah, you haven't won anything. You've won the right to spend money.
Yes, and you have to do your research knowing like how many pairs they made of this specific shoe, because if it's a limited amount of pairs in comparison to like 20,000 pairs per size, if they make 600 pairs in my size throughout the entire world, that's going to be a well sought after shoe.
Oh, yeah.
And if you win that draw, you're part of that club. Now you own that shoe, and that's where people will resell that, make $200-$400 a shoe. I'm not. I don't do that. I just don't have time to post shoes to make $300. To be honest with you,
no, you're past that game.
I'm the type of person that I bought that shoe because I really wanted that shoe, and I am a part of that quote unquote club. And I'll wear it when I want to wear it, but it might not be my everyday shit kicker. But I'll keep it on my shelf just to know that I have it.
Absolutely. And I purposely held that one off till the end because I wanted to show a different side to everything we do. We always, like, people come to me on financial stuff, and I just have to talk about it all the fucking time. Sometimes I just want to talk about, man, let's go for a cigar or some 100%, shit like that. It has nothing to do with anything else, but then all of a sudden the eyes light up because it's not something, we just spent, like, it's almost 2 hours talking about bodybuilding. Shit, man, let's talk about some shoes. And then
and I'll say one thing with that: don't buy Jordan mids. So there's lows, there's mids, and there's highs.
Oh, okay.
And mids are kind of frowned upon because the mid was basically, and this might sound super arrogant again, and I'm very new to the shoe game in the last couple of years, but the mid was actually never made to, like the original Jordan shoe. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Air. If you haven't, watch it. It's really, really good. It talks about kind of the back end of the making of the Jordan shoe, with Phil Knight and all that kind of stuff. But basically, the mid was made to be a lower class option with cheaper materials so that people could be a part of the club that couldn't afford the Jordan High. And the Jordan High was actually a Jordan shoe made on the court, worn on the court by Michael Jordan. The Jordan 1 High, you name it, that was the original Jordan. Which they came out with the Lost and Found in the last year. I think a year and a half ago, roughly December, was when it launched. And that was a replica of the first ever Jordan shoe made, which was...
What year would the original one have come out?
To be honest, I don't even remember.
That's got to be late 80s at that point, eh?
Yeah. I think it may have
Producer Mac, do you remember? Was it 91? I just remember thinking, man... This is for shoe. Look, I grew up. We didn't have a lot of money.
This is a question, to be honest with you, that this speaks to the knowledge of the shoe game. Where I would say Ty is more into it than me. He would know.
He'd know the production month of the very first
sure,
one.
and he knows even Kobe's. You go into like that side of things. The shoes that would make money, Ty had back in the day and flipped them to make money. But 1985. Yeah, so that's the Lost and Found. So that I actually have that shoe that was re-released this year on the left there. But the original one is on the right there.
Yeah.
Great movie if you haven't seen it. Watch Air.
No,
It's really, really good. But the mid kind of was not made, and then it was made way later for the people that couldn't be a part of the club per se. And that sounds super arrogant and whatnot.
No, that's the way of the world.
It's not the original shoe, right? There was lows and highs. The highs were actually worn on the court by Michael Jordan and so forth. And it's that legacy behind the shoe, right? Now, does that mean I think you're a goof if you wear mids or you're a loser? Absolutely not. Buy your fucking shoes and buy what you can afford because they are cheaper, and a lot of them are made with cheaper materials and stuff. I'd rather somebody wear mids than a fake pair of Jordan 1 highs. I'll tell you that.
We ain't even going there.
You know what I mean? So, and that's just, again, I'm getting more and more into it as just for fun on the side. And when I see a nice pair I like, I'll buy it. Am I going to buy the Dior Jordan 1s that are $10,000? No, because if I have $10,000 like we talked about before this conversation, I'm probably buying a Rolex because that will make more money and be a better investment over time, in my opinion. But those shoes will be worth something if you leave them in the box forever. And that's a thing, right? You wear one of those watches, chances are nobody will ever be able to tell you wore it. If you
keep in good shape, and you're only wearing them to nice events.
I'm telling you right now, you take a pair of Dior 1s out of a box and you wear them one time.
40% drop. Probably.
There's people that will know that. They'll look at the sole and know that you wore it for even once. And that shoe has fucking dropped a ton in value, right? So, I mean, it's all part of the same game, but a different game in the same breath. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's fun. That's why I do it. I think it's fun. It gives me something to collect that's not hurting me drastically. I can't afford to collect $200,000 whips. So,
different game.
Yeah.
But again, you got to be smart on that one too. But you know what? That's a whole different episode, man. I really appreciate you coming out today.
Thank you for having me, brother.
So, hey, we're wrapping that up. From behind the camera, we got producer Mac, got Braeden Miller here. All his credentials are going to be down in the description. You know who I am. I'm Chris. We're going to actually have his business partners at the gym on available eventually. We got Tyler going to come on. I think Dylan said yes as well. Absolutely. So for today, we're out of here. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.